All right. Hi. I'm back because when I finished the first segment in this topic, we were heading into a commercial break for the Urban View Network on SiriusXM, and I didn't have the capacity to continue the conversation the way that I did with the people on Urban View. So I'm back now because the part one of this conversation where we were talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, MAGA, and the bosom buddy nature thereof, we had to stop it. And so I want to pick up another component because I think if you don't get this part of it, it might just seem like the Jeffrey Epstein story is really just a story about Jeffrey Epstein, MAGA, and Donald Trump. And I think it's way more than that. And this is a connection that we made during the show, which I explore more fully in the podcast episode that's coming out today at 2:00. But I just want to make sure that we're all clear on YouTube, because YouTube, it's a different audience. And I just want to make sure that y'all get the fullness of what it is that we were talking about today. So in the first episode of this two-part segment, I talked about Jeffrey Epstein, and I talked about this letter from the Wall Street Journal and this article that basically talks about the fact that Donald Trump was very much a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and MAGA is losing their shit right now. You should go back and watch that before I get into this next part. But the story is not complete without this next part. And so I owe it to you all to give it to you. And this is going to be very quick. It's not going to be long. I just need to make sure that the story is complete. So the other thing that we need to consider with Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, and MAGA, and the fact that MAGA is very upset that Donald has done a 180 and no longer wants to talk about Jeffrey Epstein and wants it all to go away, is the other component of this, which is that in addition to the fact that the State Department for Donald Trump basically shut down the one American office that's designed to track and monitor and prevent human trafficking, they just fired from the Department of Justice the one prosecutor who was responsible for prosecuting and getting a conviction against Jeffrey Epstein. And they basically now have produced this article that talks about this letter that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein talking about enigmas or gay minds, which means very young girls never get older and we should always have these secrets together. In addition to all of that, all of which in and of itself, if that were all that was happening, would be enough. There's another part of this for me that I think we really have to pay attention to that takes us away from being a Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, let's laugh at MAGA and how foolish they are. And isn't it funny that they're getting it handed to them? It takes it from that and makes it much more a part of what we, the people, have to be concerned about. And I really wish I could have gotten this into the first video, but there was a lot going on and we're doing a live show. So that's what it is. Do you guys remember that it's the Republican Party that in the Project 2025 reality wants to reorganize social safety net programs so that the only people who get to benefit them are married couples, married families, a man and a woman? Do you remember that it's Project 2025 American supporters who basically believe that women should not only not have a right to choose, but you should not get access to reproductive health care or any sort of health care that is in contravention with what your husband or the man who is in charge of you believes? Do we forget that it's the Republican Party right now who is really mounting an effort to get rid of no-fault divorce, which is the one type of divorce that allowed women to be able to escape from very dangerous, toxic marriages where they were trapped and could not escape, because if you did not have a no-fault divorce paradigm in your state, which no state did prior to the 1960s, if your husband did not want to give you a divorce, you were trapped there. Do we forget that it's the Republican Party that wants to undo the legislation that is only 50 years old? Legislation that basically says a woman could open up a bank account or get a line of credit without her husband or father or some other penis-bearing human being who had power over her signing off on that, which means that basically if you are 50 years old or older, you are among the first of women who could get access to a line of credit or open up a bank account without a man signing off on it. Do we forget that it's the Republican Party that is trying to, through white Christian nationalist circles, bring back a notion known as headship voting? This is a type of voting that basically says the only people who can vote are men, and that men will vote on behalf of women and children, and that they will not have a say. It is the man who will get to vote. Are we forgetting that it's the Republican Party, the white Christian nationalist edition of the Republican Party, that basically said that in a white Christian nationalist in America, there would not be women who could vote, because when women vote, they think about other people, and that means it would undermine the ability for a white Christian nationalist America to sustain itself? If we just talk about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump and MAGA in a way that sort of allows us to laugh and make fun of them, which we should definitely laugh at and make fun of them. But when we do it in that way and don't make these other connections, we forget that in much the same way that we can recognize that white nationalists, white supremacists who are doing everything they can to destroy integration. They are destroying every law that leads to integration. They are making it illegal to have conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't want anything woke. They are doing everything they can to make sure that integration is ended. And a lot of times we will look at those sorts of actions and we will say that is the sign of somebody who is very desperate, who feels like they are in the last throes of their ability to assert their power, and they're doing everything they can. They're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink at the wall, trying to make it work because they're worried about integration being a permanent thing and they want to return to a white nationalist distribution of power. When you take that same analysis and understanding that the people who are doing everything that they can to destroy integration are doing so because they really want to reestablish a white manistan where only white people have power. And we take that same analysis and we look at these people who believe in a patriarchy that is so brutal and so extreme that women have no voice, no say, and you can be burned at the stake for doing anything that is not in alignment with what it is that they desire. These very same people who are creating in states like Idaho, entire little mini rural towns based on this headship voting and this idea that only white men can have power. And then you look at the way in which the Jeffrey Epstein stories of the world and the fact that they are destroying the state's capacity to prevent sex trafficking. They are destroying the state's capacity to prevent human trafficking of slave labor. They are trying to destroy a woman's ability to have any legal say in this world whatsoever. And to me, it feels like we are also in the last gasps of patriarchy, white nationalist patriarchy, really doing what it can to ensure that there will never be a time where women ever come as close to having the sorts of rights that we have right now. That, for me, is one of the most important parts of this entire thing. It's not just about what MAGA is going through and the fact that they are finally realizing how foolish they have been. It's also about the fact that what's happening in this story is also a direct connection to them not just trying to get rid of integration. They are also trying to get rid of gender equity. They're trying to get rid of any effort for people who don't have penises to have a say in this world. And they're doing so with the same level of rabid, violent stress and concern about their ability to be viable as they are in the race space. And we need to be aware of that, because what is going to happen right now and what with the fallout that's continuing with this entire Jeffrey Epstein situation is so significant, not simply because of MAGA. It's also an example of what it is that they're trying to establish in this world, in a Project 2025 America, where women have no voice, have no say, have no capacity to lead, and can lose their life if they attempt to assert otherwise. And I think that is a very important component of this. And it takes, for me, the story out of the realm of just the salacious into the political in a way that we really have to pay attention to. Now, in the conversation I had after we got off on our first segment today, we had Ebony Janice on the air. She's amazing. You guys are going to get a chance to hear that for those of you who have an Urban View subscription. We're also going to include that conversation in one of our future podcast episodes so you can hear what it is we need to be thinking about when it comes to battling, not just with race, but battling with patriarchy and battling with people who are going to attempt to do everything they can, including trying to work with Black men to try to convince them to work in opposition to Black women. We had a vibrant conversation about that. We know that ain't going to happen, but that's what's going to happen. That's what they're going to try to do. And I just think these are things we need to be aware of, because these people are not playing, and they really do want a white Christian nationalist environment where only white men have power, where Black people, women people, and other non-white men people literally have to return to a level of enslavement and debasement that only is designed to benefit them, and which they are really good at, because it's exactly the type of society that they intended to create when they came to these shores in the first place. I just had to give that other edition. You can go back and listen to the first segment in this. It's got the same title. This is just a part 2. I just want to make sure to add that component to it, because I think that there's a fuller conversation that we need to have beyond just the Epstein and the salaciousness of it. It really is about white power, white masculine power, and what it is that they're trying to do right now, and how we got a whole lot of work to prepare for it. We got a whole lot of work to do. But right now, I'm going to log off. I love you all. I'm about to go celebrate my husband's birthday. We got stuff to do, baby. So I hope you have a great weekend, even though I probably just kind of depressed you with this entire conversation. Sorry, scaring is caring, but I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend. I will be back here on Monday. Peace.